welcome to P4 of Information Systems. So I'm going to give you 2 weeks to do this task, not because it's a 2-week task, but because I want to try and also do M1 as well. So if you're going to do M1, I suggest that you do P4 in 1 week and then complete M1 next week when I release that video. For everyone else, there's quite a few of you who are behind already, and there really is no reason you should be behind if you keep up with deadlines. So by the end of this P4, which is 2 weeks, I expect everyone to be up to date. There really is no reason why you can't be up to date. This is not a particularly long task. Anyway, I've said all that, so let's just look at P4. So P4 is about the features and functions of an information system, and I'll sort of describe what an information system is as we go through it. Let's look at the functions. So we've got input and storage. So data is input into the system and it's stored. It's then going to be processed, and I'm going to break all these down in a minute. We then get some type of output, and we'll have some type of feedback loop, and we'll also discuss open and closed systems. We'll then look at the features of information systems, which is the way we store the data, the people that make up the system, the hardware and software that make up the system, and any telecommunications. So this page is the content of P4. This is what I want you to write about. So the first thing we're going to look at is the functions. So I'll probably want you to make some type of diagram like this to represent the flow of information in this system. So we're going to start with input. So information will be input into a company's or a business's systems. So it might be someone types information in to a spreadsheet. It might be information that's collected from an online form. It might be information that's collected from an automatic till, an EPOS system. It might be data gathered from research companies. So the idea is we're getting this data and information coming into the system. So the system is just the whole thing, the business's way of managing information. That information that's input into the system needs to be stored, and it could be stored in different ways. A common way of storing information is in a database. So some information might be stored in a database, other information might be stored in a spreadsheet, some might be in text files, depending what the data is. And that data will probably be stored on the company's server, and it'll be backed up and all that type of thing. After it's been stored, we can then move on to processing. So processing data is about transforming that data into some type of usable information. It might be as simple as calculating some averages or summing up the data. It might be more complex stuff like linear regression, or it might involve AI or neural networks. It could involve lots of different things, but essentially we're doing some calculations on that information. We are crunching all the numbers and turning it into something more useful. Once you've processed that information, you'll want to output it. And that's probably going to be in the form of some type of report or chart or table. And that will give an overview of what's been processed. The charts might have things like trend lines on them to help you see what's going to happen next, like forecasting the I don't know, price increase of products, or forecasting your sales in the future, or forecasting how much stock you're going to have next week, and stuff like that. So you'll then generate these reports that might be distributed to managers, they might be distributed to the CEO to make some executive business decisions. So the output is the end result, the meaningful information that's coming out. So the feedback loop and the control and feedback loop is about that output can then be used as an input. So as an example, if you've got your sales figures from last month or last year, you could put them into the system, and then the new data that's coming in, you can process and compare that to the previous data. So you can see this time last year, you were 5% higher than what you are this year. So this helps to benchmark your new information. So control and feedback loops are about using your existing previously output data as a benchmark for your new data, a comparison. And the open and closed system is about this data processing system where you're inputting the information and processing and outputting it. Is it closed? And that means, is it sort of self-contained? Is it a step of sort of processes that occur just within the company and within the software chain that you've got set up? Or is it a bit more open? Is it a bit more flexible, and does it communicate with maybe other companies or other agencies might get involved in processing it? Have you got information coming in from different systems, maybe processing from different systems? Is it a more open environment of data processing? So I have broken all this down slide by slide. I'm not going to read it, but essentially I've broken it down, what I've just talked about. With the output, as you can see here, you could subdivide that into two forms. You could have a graphical output, which is a chart or some sort of display, or a textual output, which might be a table or values of numbers. So a graphical output is best just to convey the idea. The slope of a line, you can instantly see whether it's going up or down, or a pie chart, whether it's, you've got a large segment or not. Whereas the textual output tends to be more focused on specific details, where you'll have to read it and digest the information. So I've written about those. I'm not going to go over them anymore. But we're now on to the features of the information systems. So these are the parts that actually make that data processing system work. So you're going to need some hardware. So a company would have computers, like laptops, monitors, printers, scanners. They might have EPOS systems and tills, and they might have a whole host of other equipment. But this hardware is needed. it's a physical interface and a way of actually storing the data. So they need hardware. They also need software. So this could simply be a spreadsheet. That might be it. They might just have a spreadsheet and email, and that's it. Or it might be much more complicated. They might have database software. They might have specialist software to do calculations. They might have finance software. They might have a whole host of different programs tailored to their business. They probably need a database. So you are going to be doing a database unit with Richard. So a database is a way of organizing information. A relational database helps you structure it in such a way that you can search through it and store data efficiently. A lot of companies use databases, and you can query the database, and you might have some front end to that. It might be a web-based interface, or it could be a software-based interface. A network, so you'll need some type of physical network set up to allow you to share the data and distribute the data and collect the data. So your company is probably going to have more than one computer in it, so they need to be networked together. Again, you're doing a network unit. You probably know far more about that than I do. The next thing we need to consider are the procedures and protocols. So this is just the rules of the company and the policies for storing it and transferring it and accessing it. So that might mean passworded protected computers or passworded protected files. It might mean you are not allowed to print anything out and leave it lying around, that everything's secure. It might mean you're not allowed to store things in other countries which don't have the same data protection laws. You've got to abide by data protection laws and so on. And then the people are an important part of this system. They are the people that enter the information. They are the people that will process that information and maintain records. They will largely be responsible for the accuracy of the input information. And they will be the ones who analyze and create the reports and then read the reports. So people have different skills. So some people are good at entering information and don't make many errors. Maybe the professional typists, they can enter information quickly and accurately. Other people may be prone to lots of errors. Not only that, but people have different skills at using different software. So if you're using specialist software, you'll need to train all your staff to be able to use it. And you might have to do lots of complex calculations. So you might need people with specific data processing skills. So you might need to train them to use that software and be able to understand that process. And then you'll need people who can make the reports, who can summarize that information and present it to others. And then obviously you've got the people who are going to read the reports. Can they understand what the information is? So I want you to go through this list here and explain each one of these. So go through them in order. Oh, the telecommunications, I don't think I've included a slide on that. That's just the ways that a company might communicate. So internally they might speak to each other on the phone, they might email each other, they might have messaging systems, they might have like a help desk system where you can report errors or request technical help from IT staff. So that's just about how the company communicates with itself, and to get this job done. So yeah, I want you to go through these things on this list, draw a little diagram explaining the functions of this information system and describe each stage. If you can give a little example, that would be even better. I don't just want a simple definition of what input is. I want you to give me some examples along with that. So you've got 2 weeks. If you're doing M1, I highly suggest that you do P4 in 1 week. It's not a difficult task really for 1 week. If you need any help, I'm available online and on Monday afternoons. Okay, thank you.